Donnie, thank you so much for coming to the show today. I really appreciate you coming on Inner Edison.
Dude,
Donnie,
I could tell you before you get into it, man, the fun conversations we've already had before we get into the show, I'm gonna tell you this is gonna be a good time.
yeah, well, that's all about the show, right? The only thing I really want to go over is because Inner Edison is about our greatest accomplishments come from our greatest defeats.
For sure.
And you have to be okay with them. We hide them. I've had people on the show. I know what they've had issues with, and what they tell me is their biggest defeat. I know is not, right?
Right.
Because they're still afraid to tell you, the reason I had this problem is because I almost lost everything. But they'll say, well, I lost 20 grand. No, the real issue you had is you almost lost everything because your people couldn't eat. You didn't have money for payroll. That's what I'm talking. Those are, until you run into that, you really don't understand pain.
Yep.
Until you're a business owner. I know we're vets, and I would say that most vets become great business owners because we're so attention to details. Everything we learn from being in the military and how to write SOPs and all that helps us in business. But we're the worst asking for help.
I
That was
would I would
my
agree
state was
with
going to be. Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that for the most part, but let me put one caveat on it. Once a military person, veteran, however you want to look at it, finally decide to start living, then they can be a good business owner. Most don't decide to start living. They continue to be the gray man walking around in life, just doing what's ever in front of them next step. But some of them, the select few, I would say, actually decide, you know what? I'm gonna do something with my life. Those
Yeah.
are the ones that get after it.
What do you mean by living? Explain that
They're
part,
ju- they're
because
just, they're just existing in
gotcha.
life.
They have no purpose again.
Yep.
Is that what
Yep.
you're talking about? Yeah.
100%.
Well, our biggest problem when we get out of the military, we lose our purpose
100%.
unless we plan our last year or last 2 years how we're getting out. Most people who just like, oh, but you're getting out now, or you're medically retired, or you're this, they lose their purpose and they go down that rabbit hole and they need help. And that's why I do the other podcast, Helping the
For
Brave,
sure.
so we can help veterans once you take the uniform off and you understand people's transitions and how you go through it. It's no different than starting a business. You need to understand what the processes are, what you're going to run into, and you need to have uh, a mastermind. You need to have a coach. You need to have peer groups. You need to have everything to help you along the way. Right.
For sure. For sure. Because to your point, we are the worst at asking for help. I agree with that one 100%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why most people with I know this is not a show on PTSD, but most guys with PTSD, the only time they get help is when they've ruined every relationship they've had. And then finally they realize I need to get help, and they're 45, 47, finally by that time it happens.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we just don't take care of them very well. So,
Agreed. Agreed. Agreed.
all right, now let's talk about you. You are a veteran. All right. So how did you get, so you were in the Marine Corps.
Yep.
How did you get into business?
So I was a lucky one out of the Marine Corps. You literally went to work for my best friend, and he was an old man. I'd worked for him before I went in, but that's when I broke into sales, and then I spent the next 20 years selling for other people, straight commission, other people. I turned 40, and it was the first time in my life that I'd ever heard that you could do this thing called being a business owner. Just blue collar kid, man. You went from high school to Marine Corps to blue collar living. I mean, I sold in Cardinal Health, Fortune 500, but um, just the whole idea. There's no entrepreneurs in my family. There's no business owners in my family. There's nobody doing anything. You just went and you got a job. I mean, dad was a truck driver. Mom worked in factories. Dad retired from Xerox as a technician. Mom retired as receptionist for an eye doctor. So as I, was building my career, the idea of opening a business was never a thing, but turned 40 and just had that epiphany that I'd spent my entire life making everybody else wealthy. So decided to give a go. So I launched my company, and that's where my biggest fails come from. So it's been an adventure.
Well, I mean, you're a salesperson, so technically, straight commission, you are a business owner, right? But you don't realize that, right? And that's the thing in
I'm gonna
my
I'm gonna
industry.
nah, I'm gonna challenge that a little bit, and here's
That's
why.
okay. You can challenge me that,
Yeah,
but let me
yeah,
let me finish my statement then.
all right.
All right. So in my industry, I'm mortgage industry. You work for a company, straight commission. You need to understand that once you've realized that you're the CEO of your own destiny and what you're trying to do, that's when you actually start making money.
That statement I agree with, but here's the maybe it's not a caveat, maybe it's industry specific. So let me acknowledge that. So for me, I sold for commercial companies. So I sold commercial heating and air conditioning. I sold commercial printing. I sold commercial franchises. And then I sold sales training. So I was always in a B2B high stress, high power sales position, and sold millions upon millions of dollars doing that. But in that role, being straight commission, I still had numbers I had to hit, right? So I still had sales numbers I had to hit. I had to have quotas I had to hit. Somebody was telling me what, log jump over, if you will. So I never understood, nor did I have the need in my head to think anything other than I got to take down that target, right? So I would sell, my numbers, and then I could coast because I was making enough money that life was really freaking good. And so even though I was straight commission, the one thing I never understood before launching my business is my whole life was spent with other people telling me what to do. I'd never had to really think for myself. So I was able to gray man, just coast through life, doing just enough because it was a good life. It just wasn't the life I wanted to live, but I didn't know it till after many years.
Right. And I agree with that. But then you go from having somebody tell you your minimums to now have customers tell you everything.
Correct. Correct. Well said.
You still have someone telling you what to do. And the biggest thing is, and that's why I say, I don't care if you're a salesperson, because in this world, sometimes it's not best to have that company. It's best to be a one person and you work for, you do sales, but you through something else too, where you don't have all the overhead and everything else.
Mhm.
There's many situations where it makes sense not to actually go out and have your own brick and mortar or certain things, but you have to figure out what is best for you. And the biggest challenge most people have as business owners and salespeople is not knowing how to do it on their own. Right.
Yeah.
They're,
No, I disagree with you. I 100% agree with you. I mean, the whole thought process is I don't think you can legitimately teach business. I know there's MBA programs. I know there's all these, online business schools and everything else, but business, like anything else, is all theory until you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And
Okay. You're reading a boxing metaphor.
I don't know
Right,
shit about boxing.
No, but that was what's his name? Not Holyfield, but the other
Mike
guy,
Tyson. Everybody's
Mike
got a
Tyson.
plan. You get punched in the face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that that's the whole thing with life in general, and even say in the military, the best laid plan is going to fail in the first, encounter. So it's the same thing when you get in business, when you don't realize, if we'll go from the sales route, because that's what I know, that you sold somebody else's style, you sold somebody else's stuff. You never thought about being a CEO. You never thought about all that goes into running a business, because now you're not only selling it, now you have to deliver it. Oh, now you've got to service your clients. Oh my God, now you've got a bill. Wait, now you got to get all this stuff done. Holy crap, you've brought in employees. Now you got to pay them. Oh, now an employee's sick, right? All the things that you don't see when you're working for other people that now fall on your lap because you were crazy enough to go, you know what? I could build a business. I could do this. I could make this on my own. I love telling everybody your business will work on you a hell of a lot more than you'll work on your business, because you're going to freaking meet the man in the mirror real quick, building your own company.
Right. When I worked for other people, I thought I spent their money as well as the owner of the company would do. Right. And then you get out and you start your company. You're like, holy cow, I was wrong.
Per diem was a beautiful thing, right? When you work for other people, and now you're like, guys, when you get there, take it easy on the dinner and take it easy on the breakfast. But when you're in the sales role, man, you're like, woo, let's go all out.
And you just, I mean, so that we've come a long way, in sales and how we do things, and then talking about what you're talking about in sales. Because I still think being a salesperson, if you do it right, you are your own business owner. You're just doing it underneath another house. So if you do it right, meaning that you push your numbers and go past what their minimum expectations are, that's different. But most people don't do that until they get out on their own, like you were talking about. Right. And then, so now once you got out on your own, you started your business. Is this the same business you're in now right now?
It is.
And what business is that?
Not same I'm not doing the same thing I started out with. So when I launched my company in 2017, Success Champions, I really thought I was going to open a sales training company. So my last career was an organization called Sandler Training. Supposedly, I became one of the top sales trainers in the country. I'm not really sure what that means, other than I'm good at flapping my gums in front of a room, right? But when I launched my company, I didn't know. But the day after I literally put my shingle up, website up, Sandler Corporate sent a corporate attorney and a sheriff to my farm to deliver me my non-compete papers. I don't even remember signing them. So I started off with my company. I couldn't talk about sales, business development, sales management, sales training anywhere. And that's all I knew. So, but since I couldn't do that, I started off as a success coach. And to this day, Ed, I have no idea what the hell a success coach is. I can tell
Hey,
you it's some sort of business whore, but
I thought Texas, it was a at-will state to where they couldn't do no. See, in
so
yeah.
yeah, you're 100% right. I went to my attorneys and said, "Let's fight it." My attorney said, "No problem. We got this. We'll handle it." They came back 2 days later and said, "We're in trouble." And I said, "Okay, why are we in trouble?" They goes, "You're going to win this." I said, "Okay. How's that trouble?" He goes, "Because they're good at this." I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "They're going to bury you in about 2 years of fucking paperwork." My non-compete was for 1 year. They're
Gotcha.
like, "So it's going to cost me $250,000 to go fight this damn thing." And then by the time it was done and I spent all that money, my non-compete would already been up for a year.
Right.
So I'm like, dude, I'm a sales guy. I can just make this happen. I'll just muscle through and figure it out as I go along. Yeah, that wasn't a smart decision. So literally 6 months of being this business whore, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know what I was selling, but you name it, and I was trying to sell it. Half-ass coaching, freaking graphic design at one point, um, social media packages. I mean, it was all over the place because I just didn't know what the hell I was doing. Well, 6 months of doing that with my wife asleep upstairs, I walk out the back door of my farm, and her Jeep's missing. So I called the sheriff up, and I said, "Hey, my wife's Jeep's missing. I think somebody stole it." And he goes, "No, sir. It's been repossessed." And I went, fuck. Because now I had to go back in the house and tell my wife what all happened and how bad it was. So not only was the Jeep had been repossessed, the mortgage was 3 months behind because I had spent every dime I had. I'd cashed in my 401k without even telling my wife to try and build this business. And I pissed it all the way. Wasn't completely pissed away, but I was investing in people, software, coaches, anything I could think of to try and figure this all out. And nothing was working. And I just blew through all my coffers. So my wife had to literally look me in the face, goes, "I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't how we can make this work." And then she kind of ducked her head and she goes, "I'll cash in my 401k, but you're going to have to get off your ass and go sell something." Oh, and dude, let me tell you, when that moment happened, a lot of thoughts go through your fucking head. The first thought I had is, how the fuck did it get so damn bad? How did I let it get to here? The second thought is, man, you're not failing you, you're failing her. Right? I wasn't holding up my end to the fucking marriage. I wasn't holding up my end to myself. I wasn't holding up, to the clients I'm supposed to be serving. I was not being a fucking man at that point. And dude, that night when I went upstairs, I've never had a thought of suicide in my entire life. That's just not the path I ever went down. But that night when I went upstairs, I tried to look myself in the mirror and I couldn't meet myself eye to eye. I was so disgusted and disappointed with myself because, it's sales. I've been selling all my freaking life. Why couldn't I freaking sell this? And it was kind of funny looking back now, but I tried to look in the mirror and say the words, "I'm proud of you." And I couldn't get the words out because there was nothing I was doing that I was proud of. And then the thought my wife kept, "Get off your ass and go sell something." And I realized the one thing that I wasn't doing was the thing that I was really good at. So as I was building my business, man, I was behind the scenes trying to be a quote unquote CEO. I was creating systems and processes and doing delivery and spending time with clients. I wasn't doing the one thing I was supposed to be doing, which is out front selling shit. So I decided, fuck it, we're going all in. And I started going like a madman, selling anything I freaking could. Like got lucky, and a buddy of mine threw me a bone and said, "Hey, I've got a stage for you if you want to come talk on it." And I said, "Dude, I can't talk about sales. I'm still under this non-compete." He goes, "Just come tell your story. If you tell your
Mhm.
story, you're going to be fine." So I go and I tell him, a room of about 400 people, and I'm talking through my journey of a sales guy and how I got to here. Afterwards, a guy walked up to me and said, "Dude, I love your story. I love your energy. Would you come tell your story on my podcast?" And I said, "What the hell's a podcast?" So this was April of 2018.
Right.
And I was on his show. 2 days later, one of his listeners reached out to me and became a client. And that's how I got into podcasting. And I tell everybody, podcasting is what truly saved
Mhm.
my business. But it was rough, man. You go through a moment of time like that when you realize you're not holding up your end of the bargain, and you got a ride or die that's going to stick by you no matter what. That's a moment, definitely a freaking moment.
And I appreciate you sharing your story, because we were talking beforehand. A lot of people won't tell their story; they're afraid to. And it started with me when, so I got on radio in 2018, doing talk radio on 1360, a real estate and finance show that I do. And I was private up until that point, but then you get to a point you're on air for an hour
Mhm.
a week for so many years. Everybody knows, and I fill in for a lot of other people on their actual conservative talk radio, the shit that
Right.
people don't like to hear in other places. And now everybody knows everything about me, right?
Yep.
Everything. Like, even I wrote a book that came out in February. In there, I talk about how 2008 destroyed me and my company, and how I had to go bankrupt, and how I had to do all this stuff, even though I didn't want to. And I hid that for years.
Right.
People don't want to hear that. They want to hear that you have problems too, so you understand who they are, right?
So I can tell you the whole reason I share my story, and I do not mind sharing it, is because I wish somebody was out there telling this shit when I was going through it. See, I thought I was alone, right?
Right. Everybody thinks that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I thought, man, nobody knows how bad I got it. And the worst thing is the thought that goes through your head is, man, if I tell anybody how bad it is, nobody will do business with me. So now I'm double fucked, right? And that's just what goes through your freaking
Because
head.
I'm a loser, and I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
that, yeah. And that's goes back to even being veterans, where we don't ask for help, because of, even when we're in the service, we get firefight or whatever, you'll call in for air support. I was lucky, I was a corpsman with the Marines. I never had to do that. But I'm just saying, you ask for help all the time. You get support all the time. We get out, we want to do it on our own and get no help. And you can't do it that way. You have to get help somehow.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the same in business, because I think, and I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for everybody. I think for me, it was I saw all these other people that were supposedly successful, right? You see the Instagram
Yeah.
version of their life,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until I really started meeting people in person that were supposedly successful people that you realize, oh my god, this dude doesn't have his shit together at all. This person doesn't know what the fuck they're actually doing. So it was one of the big reasons I'm like, dude, I've got to share this story and all my fuck ups, because I got to be at least be one guy out front going, hey, this is what I fucked up, and here's how you figure it out. Do go this direction next. Do this. Right? Nobody was there saying, hey, Donnie, keep going. You got this, bud. It was just me sitting on my little bitty island trying to trudge through with an oar moving an island across an ocean that I didn't know which direction to freaking row, if you would. There's a
Yeah,
sailor
but
joke.
right, I got you. And it's really that no compete that threw you off,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even
I mean,
though because you were like, I can't do that. What do I do? Right.
yes, that
You knew that so well. If you could have got out doing that from the beginning, you would have been fine, but you wouldn't be where you are now.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, I I needed to fall so freaking hard that I had no choice to fight. My last business partner before I jumped out on my own, we just talked about this not too long ago. He goes, "How did you get to where you are now?" Right? He goes, "How have you built what you've built?" And looked at him. I said, "Dude, I literally had to fall so hard. There was no choice to look up, because I'd lived my life so status quo, right? Doing just enough to get by, that nothing I tried. I always had that kind of dream in my head, like there's got to be a better life. There's got to be something more. But no matter how many times I tried, there wasn't enough giddy up in me to make it happen, right? I'd always slide back to status quo and just being okay, I guess being okay. And it took this bolt of lightning of having to look at my wife saying, we're about to lose everything, to go, oh shit, dude, you've actually got to fucking do something with your life. You've got to start moving forward. And that was the most massive shift. I don't think I would have fell as hard had I been able to do sales right out the gate. I needed to fall hard to shock the system.
I agree with that. I mean, because, nothing, I mean, if I go back to 2008, it was nothing we did technically, right, that destroyed our industry. And then you come back, and then recently now with rates tripling, because of somebody wanting no pipeline and other stuff
Right.
we've done, it was self-inflicted by our government. You're going, I didn't do anything wrong. Why the hell is my business down? You know what I mean? This is,
Right.
I started looking at other things. I love my industry. I love helping people get into homes because there's nothing else like it, getting your first home and building personal wealth or home ownership. But it's at the point where it's like, I'm tired of an industry destroying itself because of some political government, right? Our government taking over certain things and messing with their interest rates and everything. Years and years ago, we were steady on interest rates. They didn't move like this. We moved up 4% in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't care how much money you put aside, enough money to go for a year, that doesn't last long enough,
Right.
in this market, right? And especially with inflation, now your year is only 6 months, right? So you got to get to a point where, okay, now I'm cutting staff, I'm doing this differently. Well, the question is, all that change is a way to do something else and come out the other side better. That's all I was trying to get at. All those little things that is hard for us make us harder to figure out something different, to do it totally differently. One of the things I did to be better was I do local radio. I have a book out now. I was in a documentary last year. So I'm in all these different places that normally a loan officer wouldn't be in.
Right.
Right. And so how do you become the authority in your industry? And that's what I work on, where we haven't even got into what you actually do. And I want to get into that next. What do you actually do?
Well, I want to speak to that just really quick, and then we can dive into that. I don't think people understand how cool of an age and era we actually live in, dude.
It's so much easier to do shit now.
Oh my God, is it easier? I mean,
20 years ago, 10 years ago sucked compared to it is now. I mean,
when I started off in sales 20 years ago, I mean, you got a desk and a phone and a yellow pages, right?
Yeah. There was no internet until Al Gore made it for us.
Right. Yeah. He invented it. Right. And so the mere fact that you can open up your freaking phone, speak original thought, and have people lean into you and your personal brand is astronomically insane. That a fact that if you need to sell something, go out on social media and start talking about the damn thing you're trying to sell, right? Go talk about things that you give a shit about and watch the world lean into you. And I think, just a lot of people are like, they're just so scared of this damn device called a cell phone that there's literally people living in huts in Africa that have a cell phone that are supporting their entire family, their entire village, because they built some sort of business on their freaking phone, right? In this day and age, nobody's got an excuse of why they're not living a better life. Yeah, it's insane to me.
I think these days the biggest thing people are afraid of is talking.
That I agree with, but that's the society we're into.
Right, a phone call. I'm huge. That was my life for 18 years. I sold by the phone only, and I didn't realize at the time I had a good voice, and that's why I did so well until I got on radio, and everybody's like, "You got a great voice." And then my wife said, "Yeah, when you used to call
you got a face for radio too, so I know. I had to do that one."
Yeah, I know. Everybody tells me that. We used to see my modeling pictures when I was in the Navy, so it'll change since I got old. That's the difference.
Nice.
Older and fatter. But where was I going with this statement? I don't know. But
you're welcome. Totally derailed you.
Yeah, that's okay. Things happen like that. But it's just my thing was for my staff. Like they would say, I sent an email.
Yeah.
Did you call them? No, I sent an email. No, you call them. Then you send the email afterwards saying that you left a message regarding this. Please check your phone, right? Or text them. Do not do this. Oh, I emailed them. I text. No, you call them. And the only time you can actually know what someone's thinking is by the tones and inflections in their voice while you're listening to them.
100%. To that point, technology doesn't screw anything up. There's a lot of people like technology destroys things. No, 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 no.
Mm-mm.
Technology shortcut processes that people choose to no longer learn. So, like for the longest time, there was phone calls. That's how you did a lot of your selling. You did a lot of phone
Mhm.
calling, right? Maybe a lot of door to door type things, knocking on door. Then email came, and all the salespeople went, "Ooh, I can send an email, and I don't have to call anymore." So now they start, and so they lost the skill set of actually being able to talk on the phone. Right. And then after email came, then social media came. People were like, "Ooh, I don't have to email. I can just talk to them on social media." And then they lost the skill set of how to email. And they automated all the email systems. Well, now like Chat GPT's out, and then people's like, "Oh, well, Chat GPT can just write all the stuff and all the copy for me and all the blah, blah, blah." And now they're losing the skill set of even how to communicate with other people without having to go through some automation software. So it's not a fact that technology destroys anything. People just choose not to learn the skill sets that actually make them successful. And most times it's the old school shit you go back and lean on
Mhm.
that makes you the most successful person around you.
Right.
Um, um,
And
but
that's why everybody's like, everything new is old. It's like, no, no, no. The Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, all those old guys have been teaching how to sell. It's
yes,
always, that's how it is. It's that way. Everybody takes that stuff, changes it, and says, "This is what I've come up with." No, that
nope.
is so and so stuff. But you can, because I gave an example on one of the podcasts, and the guy said, "Oh, that was from so and so." And I'm like, "No, that was from freaking Tom Hopkins."
Right.
Right, about cards and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Right. How
Yep.
you can get somebody to pick the card in a deck. Right. So if you have somebody pull a card and it's a 9 of clubs, and you want that person to pick that somebody else in the audience to guess that card, how you can lead them down the path to guess that card.
I haven't seen that one, but that's pretty impressive.
Because what they do, it's whatever their answer is whether, okay, that just leaves the so and so. It's
Right.
freaking amazing how, or that, okay, so you picked that one, okay, great, okay, we're gonna go clubs and dot. I mean, it's just how you can say. So what they're telling you is, in sales, you can persuade people to where you want them to go. And that's how I sold by the phone. I talked the same way from the beginning all the way to the end. I used to share an office with a business partner of mine, and he's like, "Dude, every time you pick up the phone, you say the same thing from the beginning to end." I go, "That's how I can be consistent on making sure everybody," and that's why I got 98% of my packages back,
Yep.
where other people were in the 48s, the 50s.
So I tell you, sales should be the most boring profession on the planet for that reason. What happens to most people when they try and sell, they try and either get creative or they let their emotions come in the way. But your sales conversation should be the same damn conversation every freaking time. You should do it so many times that no matter what somebody says to you, you know exactly where they're going next.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just most people don't want to do that because they think it's going to be boring.
Right.
And their fear of that boredom or whatever crap goes through their head. But sales are really easy as long as you understand it's a math equation.
Right. And I'm real big on scripts, but learn them until they become a guide.
Yeah.
And I stated, somebody was asked on Facebook, I have so and so going to be doing sales calls. What should he do ahead of time? And I wrote, create a script, memorize it, and then get good at it. And then, and then somebody else like, I disagree with Ed Parcaut because scripts didn't work for me. It's like, okay, you're just being lazy as fuck now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah. You
yeah.
didn't do the script.
Well, the problem is no one says read a script. It's not like, you have kids?
No, none that I know about.
Oh, that you see the movie Up with
I have.
the
I love that
okay,
movie.
where the kid comes to the door and he's, "I'm a behavior, I'm a,"
Yep.
he's reading a script, and we showed that on one of our. So I have a coaching thing that we do, ACEs 53, and we do 2 podcasts a week on it. Basically, ACEs is attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, smile, and joker. The 53 is the first joker in the deck, right? So the joker
Yep.
is that unique ability that you have that you bring to the table. So originally in college, one of my instructors says, remember 4 aces and a joker, and that's what it was: attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, smile, and then that unique ability you bring to sales. And so we do a training on it, and we showed that script because I was like, this is what you don't do.
Right.
You need to have systems in place, and the only way to do that. So I'm real big on every objection I've ever had is in my actual speech when I talk to a client for the first time, so I don't have to worry about those objections.
100%. What I've found for me is if an objection comes up, it means you screwed up somewhere way earlier in the call, right? Because the only time objections come up, if we just want to talk, straight sales thing, is because you said something wrong, you didn't ask the right question, you made an assumption somewhere along the way, right? You'll know where a person is down to what they can afford if you just have the same conversation over and over again.
Hmm.
I tell everybody, man, go get into 1,000 sales calls. In 1,000 sales calls, figure out what is your perfect rhythm. And then by the time you get to that thousandth call, you will have heard every damn thing you possibly could have heard. And those next 2,000, 3,000, and I know people are going to be looking at me like I got two heads talking about that volume of sales. But the best of the best, dude, they're going to have that level of freaking sales conversations happening all the time.
Yeah, I used to when I sold by the phone, I used to talk to 20 to 35 people a day minimum, right? And so after a while, and how I got good on the phone was I worked for Blue Cross, or Blue Shield was in Thousand Oaks in Southern California, selling insurance to small business people for about 6 months. And that period of time, I actually started listening to what people were saying on the phone. I could hear in the tones and inflections of their voice. I could catch something in the background so I could connect with them on the phone. I learned so much in that 6-month period that I brought back to my industry. And that's why I did so well when we only did by the phone. But this isn't a podcast about me. This is a podcast about you.
It's fun, dude. I enjoy your conversation.
Well, it's really because people don't realize sales. You do sales and everything, and that's why I'm real big on it. But the real purpose of the show is to let people know, hey, your failures are what makes who you are, right? They don't define you forever, but they make you stronger to realize so that you can go the other side and come out the other side so much better. I had Brian Smith on from UGG, the UGG founder who brought him to UGGs to America.
Yep.
15-year struggle. He lost the company once during that period of time and had to get it back.
Wow.
People don't realize. People think it was a 15-year straight success story.
Right.
No, it's not. And that's what people don't realize. It's years and years and years of struggle to all of a sudden then you're successful.
Yep. And that's when everybody says you're an overnight success, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're like, oh man, this guy popped up out of nowhere. No. This guy has been popping up for freaking however many years, and you just now got to meet him because they busted their ass for this long. It's like I got a buddy named Cody Jenks who's a country music singer, and him and I bartended and drank way too much together. But he's really cracked it in country music and made a really big name for himself. And I love it when people are like, man, that guy came up out of nowhere. Nah, asshole. That dude was sitting on a 1-bar stool with one person, old dusty dive bars for 12 years before his shit popped, right? I mean, he did his time. So it's things like that I think more people would start living life if they understood the struggle that people went through. So I appreciate your podcast for that, because it's the ugly side of things that more people should embrace. And then they would stop looking for that silver bullet or that quick win or, that easy button to success of some sort.
Right. I want to go back to your statement about, you were talking about how people, look on social media and see everybody's perfect life and everything. That's the difference is you need to create social media stuff, but not consume it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's because everybody's like, did you see? I'm like, no. I'm on, I do
to that
3
point,
hours a day of that kind of stuff. I don't have time to sit there and look at other people's stuff.
100%, dude. Like yesterday, my wife looks at me as we're recording this. My wife looks at me. She goes, "Did you hear they found a debris field?" And I'm like, "Of what?" She goes, "Of the submarine." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You haven't heard about the submarine?" I'm like, "No, dear, I don't know." She's like, "Billionaire son walled down," and she starts explaining it to me. I'm like, "Man, that really sucks for that dad and his son," right? And then, of course, now it's popping up in my feed because Google listens to everything you freaking do.
Yeah, your phone.
And I'm watching all these people, go, well, it's a billionaire, blah, blah. You should have been down there, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no. It's not a billionaire. That's a dude and his son. That is 5 guys that are never going to see a day of light again. I mean, your fear of success is making you biased towards whatever happened to those guys. So
You muted yourself.
I'd never heard that story. Yeah. So she came up and said something.
Well, yeah. And that's the news. A lot of people don't watch news. Like I only watch business news to see what's going on with my stuff because I talk about that on air. Right. But other than that, I don't want to know local news. I don't want to know mass shooting because, it's different now. It makes it they're looking for that stuff to put on the news to make it to where they can sell everything. And I don't need to see that. That's the one thing I hate about when I do live radio for other people. Their thing is all about that kind of stuff. So that day I have to know what's going on. And I'm like telling people I feel like shit afterwards because I had to figure out all this stuff I don't want to talk about. I want to talk about real estate finance and how to build your business and how to do that. I don't want to talk about the bad stuff in the world. Most of it's made up just to get you to get upset.
Yep.
So
100% agree. 100% agree. So,
all right. So what does your business do since we haven't even got there yet?
we went around a couple times.
35 minutes into it, and we still haven't talked about your business.
That's all right, man. I hope they're finding value out of this.
Actually, I want to thank you for sharing. I'm going to bring this up again for sharing what happened to you. Because I've been doing this for a little over 2 years, and I've been trying to find people to do what you did, and they still fight me on it. And so this is this is exactly where I want to take my show from here on. And this is what I've been looking for. And I need more people like you.
I'll send some people your way
to tell their stories, because that's what people want to hear.
For sure. And, here's the thing. My entire business model is around the idea of I'm going to help as many freaking people as I possibly can get to freedom through building a business. Why? Because I truly think the best way in the world to meet the dude in the mirror, and a dude can be a guy or girl, don't come at me, but to meet the dude in the mirror is by building a business. Because when you work for somebody else, excuses are a real thing, right? So if you work for somebody else, if your sales are down, you can say, well, the economy sucks, lead sucks, marketing sucks, right? And they're all excuses, but they're real excuses when you work for somebody else. But when you work for yourself, if the sales are down, go freaking sell more, right? If your marketing sucks, go market more, right? So when you're building a business, you actually get to see what the hell you're made of, because I think the only people that truly find success are us assholes who were too dumb to throw in the towel when everybody else would have went and got a job or went and worked for somebody else. We put our heads down, stayed in the game longer. So what my company really does is I bring small service-based businesses together all throughout North America, and we create these small peer-to-peer groups. We just call them peer groups, where it's focused on growing your business. So you'll have upwards of 30 people in a group, all representing different industries. We do masterminds, we do roundtables, we do, member teach. We have approved trainers and speakers that go around and teach different topics. We'll put, a CEO or a business owner in a hot seat and work straight on their business. And we do it it's a monthly fee. It's $47 a month with a 1-year commitment. So we're not a networking group. We're not a referral group, because the only people who are looking for referrals are broke as fuck and need a referral. Right. So we're big on introductions, what's open doors for people. But at the end of the day, we're teaching business, and we're just doing it through peer strategies. I'm not a coach. I'm not a consultant, but I share literally every fuck up I've done in business, good, bad, or otherwise. I'll say, this is what I screwed up. Follow my social media content. You'll see that's all I share. This is what I screwed up, and here's how I figured out how to get through it. This is what I learned, because it's 100% what I wish somebody would have done for me, and nobody was out there doing it. So that's what we built the whole philosophy of the company. We run 3 companies all together, and they're all focused on that.
Yeah, I think you had a YouTube thing that said if you only network, you're
gonna lose.
Yeah.
I
used that on in my show yesterday with Brian Galke. I was like, this is the guy we need to have on, and this is so true about, if all you do is network, you're not going to make money. Basically, you said it differently, but I'm just
that's pretty much it. I mean, because there's so many people.
Broke.
Yeah. There's so many people out there that are freaking, they're like, oh, I network for everything. So I go to all the happy hours, and I go to the lunches, and I go to the breakfasts. And I'm like, anybody who has time to do all that is broke as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because anybody who's doing any business, they ain't got time to do all that stuff. And they're like, wow, I'm opening all these doors for people. Right. And then you're getting taken advantage of, because networking is not about giving. It's about give, take, give again. If you never take from networking, you're broke, and you're going to stay broke, and people are going to continue to take advantage of you. Yeah, you can give me talking about networking all day long.
Yeah, well, I only thing I do is Rotary, because it's a service organization giving back. But we have this weekly realtor meeting. There's one in each county, and everyone's like, "Are you going to that?" I'm like, "No, I stopped going to that 5 years ago because whoever went there, they weren't doing any business anyway. It was a waste of my time."
Yep.
And you shouldn't go to that either. You should just focus on what you're building your business. And back to your give and take. That's how you should do your podcast. That's how you should do your radio show. That's how you should do your marketing. And because I have a guy who's doing it, he has a group, and I'm like, dude, you keep asking constantly. You don't give anything. You need to give 3 times and then ask. You have to. It's that jab, whatever.
Yep, Gary V.
Yeah. And you got to know this stuff. You know, stop watching news. Just start listening Audible on your walks, your workout, whatever. Every book, everything out there. Yeah.
And Audible, go listen to podcast. And what people drive me nuts.
Podcasts are on Audible, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I sure are is, but you know,
I'm just saying that's everything's on Audible, and that's why it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny to me that people are like, "Well, I don't know what to look for. I don't know what to talk." I'm like, dude, go pull out your phone wherever you can listen to podcasts. I don't care what phone you have. There's a podcast app on there, Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever. Go there. They have a thing called a search menu. On the search menu, type in whatever the fuck you want to learn. You suck at sales, put in sales. There's going to be a billion podcast episodes about it. You want to learn business, there's going to be a billion business. And oh my God, you have YouTube on your phone. By the way, there's podcasts on there too. They just revamped it. So there's podcast. I mean, so you can consume good shit. I think it was Brian Tracy back once upon a time that said, you can get a 4-year degree in a 1-year commute going to and from your freaking job or business, right? People just don't want to invest in themselves because they like Eeyore in life. Misery loves company. So let's just be as miserable as every other fucker out there.
And I would tell somebody who wants to learn, listen to Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, get all that stuff out of the way, and then start listening to all the newer stuff.
Dude,
because then you'll know who's stealing what from what. I mean, because
I throw Jim Rohn in the mix because Jim was even before Zig.
Yeah.
So
and then I mean, it's just like even Tony Robbins, right? He didn't create.
He learned it all from Jim. Yeah.
All these people learned it from somebody. They just revamped it their way, and you're just listening to them thinking it's their stuff. They haven't said it's only their stuff. I mean, it's like The Secret. I mean, or I should say Think and Grow Rich was one of the first books I read, and I'm like, that is so true. By what you put out there, you get back. If all you're negative, that's all you're going to get back. And then The Secret came out as the movie video, whatever you want to call it. I'm like, that's just Think and Grow Rich revamped into a video. So.
And what's funny about Think and Grow Rich is there's a wicked theory about it that Napoleon Hill actually never met all those people.
Yeah, I heard that.
He stole all the content from somebody else and revamped it. If you listen to some of his other stuff, he was a little kooky.
I think kooky sold back then because how else just think about how many people are on social media that if you really got to meet them, they're freaking weird.
Yeah, no shit.
Right. But they do really well on social media because they're weird.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this is dating us. Pee Wee Herman was freaking ridiculous, and he made a lot of money until the shit came out that happened to him. But anyway,
well, I only know the one instance of him, and I feel bad for the guy. I mean, shouldn't have been in their first place, but
I'm just saying. But up until he was so weird in the character,
it worked. It worked.
It worked, and that's all I was getting at.
It's like that dude that wears the question mark suits and whatnot. He's weird and quirky, but it works.
The science guy.
Yeah. Your sham wow guys and all that, that
infomercials were the best, dude.
Yeah. It all worked.
Ron Popeil, right?
Yeah. Freaking, well, even if you look at Tony Robbins, even though he stole all of Jim Rohn's stuff, Tony made his off of infomercials. That's where he made all of his first big bucks, was doing the late night TV that kids nowadays wouldn't even imagine that stuff would be on TV. And
Awakening the Giant Within, all those CDs, and there's so much. And then so you just need to figure out what you want to do and just go at it. And you're going to make a mistake, you're going to have problems. That's okay. Get with some other people who are not necessarily in the same industry, because I always like outside industry and bring it into my industry, because if I go to my industry stuff, everybody's there learning the same thing, so I stand out at not at all. So
yeah, no, I agree with it. I think don't make yourself an island. Go get around other people that are going through or have gone through what you're going through. And look, you only fail if you quit. So as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, and the biggest thing I tell people is life is an experiment. So if you look at it that way, you get to go try a bunch of shit. Things are going to break. Things are going to fall apart. But it's an experiment. So, okay, that way didn't work. What's next? Let's go find that next route. We have a bunch of champions codes in our company, and it's kind of the guidelines we live by. And one of them is go break shit trying new things. And what we found is once upon a time, as we were building the business, we got really stagnant. We couldn't figure out why we weren't growing. We were just kind of flatlining. Nothing was happening. And what I realized is we weren't innovating anymore. We didn't have that hunger we had when we first came out the gate. Now we had to figure out. So I said, all right, what do we need to learn? And so we started talking to other industries. We started talking to people who are doing different things, and realized at that moment of time how small we were actually playing when we could do so much more. We started turning the screws. So now every week in our meetings, it's all right, what'd you screw up this last week? What broke? What'd you learn? How are we applying it? What are we doing moving forward? And it's moved our business tremendously forward.
Yeah. Well, it's like I've had employees make major mistakes, right? And they're like, "Are you going to fire me?" I'm like, "No, because you couldn't have learned that in any other way. I'm okay paying for that mistake as long as you learn from it, and because I know you'll never make that same issue again, and you learn how to get around it for the next time, and you can tell other people in the company how to do it, so that because you've made a mistake and you know what I mean, they were expecting to get fired. It was a costly mistake, it hurt, but I can't teach that."
Yep.
Right. You can't teach that training. You can go, okay, don't do this, and they won't understand until it happens. So I totally agree with you.
And don't come at me because I don't have kids,
No, I don't go
no,
at you.
no. This is more for the audience because I usually get one or two messages most podcasts I'm on for something I said. But it's like the people who freaking spoil their kids rotten, then wonder why their kids are freaking shitheads by the time they turn into adults. It's the same process. If you want to shortcut the process for everybody or even for yourself, you miss out on all the learning. You got to go through the shit to actually learn it. This is why the military says embrace the suck. This is why, people talk about fail forward. You got to fail to learn, fail fast. You hear all these things out there. Nothing to do with failing. It has everything to do with learning. It's what did you learn from that experience? Because everything you learn compounds, skills stack, right? So if it's going to compound, everything you learned a year ago, you're going to find yourself in a similar situation, but now you know how to handle it. Right. It only sucks the first time when you got to go through it and you've never been through it before. Now you got to navigate the waters. But, up and after that, you're like, I've been here. I don't know about you, but my funniest thing about my one boot camp story is I spent 6 months in Marine Corps boot camp because I got hurt. And I remember, there was one day that I almost quit in boot camp. I was sitting in medical. I'm like, this sucks. I can't do anything. I got double moon boots on, and I'm about ready to throw in the freaking towel. And then I'm like, man, you didn't sign up to throw in the damn towel. Let's keep going, right? And I remember the day I graduated boot camp, the first thought that ran through my head was, God, that was easy. Now, while I was going through it, it sucked ass, right? And I'm bitching, moaning, but you get on the backside of it, I'm like, damn, that was easy. I'm like, how the hell is that the first thought I had? It's like I totally forgot everything that just happened. Yeah. But that's what happens most time after you screw something up.
Right. And keeping at it, you know what I mean? Re-looking at, but also look at, is there a better way to do this? Is there something that I need to change for them to make it easier for me? Right. Because you don't have to hit your head against the wall the same way every time.
100%.
Donnie, how do people find you?
Well, first, before they do that, guys, if you stuck around this long with us, do Ed a favor and share this episode out with one person. Whether it's this episode or any other episode that he does, man, I can tell you, I have my own show. Growing an audience is one of the toughest things in the world. So if you get value from him, his guest, or whatever, share this show out with one person. It's literally like walking up and giving him a virtual hug. And he looks like a big burly dude that likes hugs. So it mean a lot to him. So if you guys want to find me, look up Success Champions or Donnie Boivin, wherever you are. We've got tons of social content coming out. You'll find the podcast called Growth Mode that we interview some of the biggest business owners and entrepreneurs in the game. And on our podcast, the whole focus is our guests come on and teach us. There's a whole lot of things that I don't know about building a business. So we find people who are experts in different arenas and let them come on and teach us a few things. And it's a lot of fun to do it. So, but yeah, Donnie Boivin, Success Champions, wherever you are, find the podcast Growth Mode. So thanks for having me on, bud. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, this has been a blast. Actually, really enjoyed this one. You know, I have some podcasts that you're like, okay, let's
Yeah,
get this
here
over
we go.
with.
Yep.
Yeah. How come my podcast didn't come out? Oh, there was technical issues.
Te
Um,
technical issues is right. Yep, yep.
yeah. So if you ever hear that, that's what happened to your podcast. You just weren't good enough. No, because I've had these where, I'm fighting with somebody on the other side because they're like, I don't agree with what you're saying. I'm like, that's okay. You don't have to, but you don't have to keep slamming me in the face about it. Right. You
Right,
can just
right.
say, this is my take on it. We'll move on. And Donnie, I really appreciate it. I had a great time with you. And just like Donnie says, if you like what I do here, the easiest thing you can do is just subscribe and share it to let people know about me.
Yep.
Donnie.
And one last funny thing, if you ever get into a conversation with somebody and they just say something that's just stupid, like, makes no sense, completely ignorant, my favorite maneuver is to look at them and go, "How old are you?" Because that just sounds like something old people would say, and that usually shuts them up and you can move on. So try it and let me know if it works for you.
All right, I'll let you know. I'll try it today when I go to lunch. All right, everybody, make it a great day. And thank you again, Donnie, for being here. And thank you guys for being here.
Absolutely.